Hello and welcome back to another week of what I am sowing and growing. Well, I say another week, another fortnight again. Very busy period for everybody concerned, I would have thought. With the restrictions that lockdown's imposing, it does make life a little more difficult. There will be another video coming up at some point in the week, which shows you the first part of my attempt to create an auto watering system. That will be followed by part 2 once I get the bits and pieces that I've ordered, once I've discovered what the downsides of doing that are. But in the meantime, today we've got quite a lot to sow. Firstly, we're going to sow some of my pumpkin seeds. These are home safe pumpkin seed from the pumpkins I grew last year. Those were those came from seeds that were provided by Erica from Erica's Little Welsh Garden, which from a pumpkin which originated from Liz and Liz Zorab, and specifically Phil. Used to sit beside them on the table whilst they were talking. Erica made Phil into some wine, and I got some babies, and these are now the grandson of Phil. And this year, once they've grown, they'll be great grandson of Phil. Fairly large seeds, so you're not talking quite small ones, you're talking pretty decent sized chunky seeds. I always lay mine flat, about half full. So all I'm going to do is literally lay them flat. That way they can get roots down, heads up, fairly straightforwardly without too much of an issue. I've put some tamped soil in the bottom of the pots already. All I'm going to do is put a little bit more compost on top. I do find that they cope with being fairly deeply planted, and it gives a better root stock when you do that. Yeah, that's it. All of these big squashes, you're trying to develop a good root stock because the top will just explode if you let it. So I do a single light misting or light watering on top to start with, and from there on in the pots are only bottom watered. That forces the roots down looking for moisture, which then helps to develop that good solid root stock for when you stick it outside. So yeah, that's the pumpkins done. Not many, again, 6 is plenty. That will produce 1 to 2 very large fruits. We typically use those as more ornamental, decorative ones for pumpkin carving, although they're perfectly edible. They do make a good feed. We prefer butternuts, and I've got a lot of butternuts this year, so and that tends to be our overwinter squash that we predominantly go to. The next thing is cucumbers. Specifically, these are, don't know if you can see that, but Piccolo di Parigi, sorry. These are a small cucumber. I use them for gherkins, so I use them for just pickling once they're small, but they do produce nice sort of snack-sized kind of cucumbers, and they're perfectly delicious as snack-sized cucumbers. But these cope with being outside quite well, which is why my main indoor varieties, my sort of more traditional ones, the more tender version, are already in the polytunnel and are starting to produce their first very small fruits, flowering, etc. These are for outdoor use, which means I can't put these, I don't typically put these out. These will be kept on a windowsill, and probably in 2 weeks, maybe 3 at a push, these will be ready to go into the ground outside, by which point absolutely 100% of all danger of frost really is past in my area. I find these have excellent germination, so I'm going to sow 1 in each cell, 12. If all 12 come up, I actually could create space for all 12. If not all of them come up, well, not all of them come up. We like gherkins, but we don't like them that much. I will probably resort to giving gherkins away this year, because we've got lots of family who like them. So pickling, much pickling in my future, but that's always the way when you have a glut of something like this. Again, same principle as all the other cucurbits and squashes. Although interestingly, I did see a question posed by Vivi from Vivi's what Vivi did next the other day, that was saying that she keeps her cucumber seeds and resows them year after year. I was wondering, because she keeps them fairly close to her squash, why they've never interbred. The reason is that although they're part of the same family, they're different genuses, which basically means that one is well, they're both cucurbits. This one, the cucumbers are Cucurba passiva, I think, and squashes are all cucurbit something or other, depending on which member of the family they are. So they can't cross-pollinate. Basically, you can't crossbreed cucumbers and other cucurbits, except for obviously other cucumbers. Right. Okay. So next we have the main focus of the sowing. We are sowing climbing French borlotti beans. These are from Vital Seeds. I got these at the Bristol Seed Swap, purchased from one of the stands. And white lady runner beans. Now I spent a good chunk of Saturday preparing my bean trellis, and it's quite a big one. It's 3 meters long on each side by 7 foot high. So it can hold a lot of beans, and the key for these is that I won't be eating them fresh. These are all, including the runner beans, to be kept for dried beans. I've got loads of French beans going in, and they'll be directly planted into the ground. So I don't need them for green beans. I've still got some runner beans from last year actually in the freezer, vacuum packed out. But these will be for dried beans, because this year I want to make my own, well, effectively baked beans. I love baked beans. I know a lot of people rag on them, don't really see them as valuable, but for me, I really like them, and I eat a lot of them. So I'd like to kind of make my own. So look out, Mr. Hines, I'm coming for you. Now there are two methodologies here. So I prefer to sow them into the toilet bowl tubes, simply because once the beans come up, you've got your root that goes down. You literally lift the whole thing, plant it in a hole, job done. Root can continue to go down, no root damage at all there. You don't really do anything. That will away very, very quickly. However, I didn't have quite enough to do the runners and the borlottis, but given that the borlottis typically are a slower starting one and a bit smaller, I put some of them, ones that I couldn't fit into the toilet bowl tubes, because I'd run out into some of these pots, and I'll get these out. I mean, these will literally be inside for 10 days before they're that high and they've germinated. They've got that high that, you know, onto 2 true leaves at plus and climbing, so they'll go out very, very quickly. Again, like almost everything, it's a fairly straightforward process. I always plant 2 of each bean into each of these. If 2 comes up, it's no great shakes. If one comes up, then that's fine as well. You know, they have stations, so it will be fairly okay. These will be fairly densely planted, so I'm expecting that trellis to be absolutely heaving. I haven't made it in a lightweight kind of frame. It is literally it's timber, heavy duty timbers screwed together. So yeah, I'm expecting to have a decent weight of plant on there, and I'm expecting to get a decent yield as a result. And that you know, that's why I did it the way I did it, you know. Right. Okay. I think I have a couple left over. I might try and do a couple of others, but for now that'll do. Yeah, same as all the others. Basically, I treat these the same as the squash. You know, again, you're trying to develop a good, strong root system which will drive the plant forward. So, just scattering on the top. We'll give 1 light water on the top, and then bottom watering. These are thirsty, so forewarned. Once they're up and starting to reach for the light, they'll quickly quickly take water. So typically what I'll do is I will put probably something like this for 24. I'll put about a pint of water in. That should last it 2 to 2.5 days. Once I've seen that the bottom has no more wastewater or sort of water waiting to be captured, I'll leave it 24 hours, by which point it should start to feel a little bit dry, and then I'll water again. Enough to keep it moist but not absolutely soaking. And because they're kept on hot, relatively warm windowsills, that works really well. I don't get rotting off at all. I don't think I've had anything rot off this year from watering in that way. So sure there will be plenty of people that don't do it that way and are going to scream and shout in the comments, oh, that'll rot off, that'll rot off. You do you, but I do it this way and I've never had an issue with rotting off. Cucumbers are particularly renowned for rotting off if they're too wet. They don't like their feet too wet, so the cucumbers will probably be more sparsely watered, so they won't get a full pint. They'll get probably half a pint with a day in between, just so they've got time for the soil to dry out a bit more, and they're not, the feet aren't sitting in water rather than anything else. And now my new ones, White Lady. These are the ones that Liz Zorab grows perennially, and they're very beautiful looking beans. You know, those I think she grows Greek gigantes that way as well. And again, same principle. I know these are big beans, relatively small tubes, but trust me, they won't be in here for long. Like I said, I put these on a warm windowsill, and I expect these to just explode away. And as soon as it's really practical to get them in the ground, I get them in the ground, because beans really don't like having their roots disturbed. So the quicker I can get them in, the better they will be off, and the better crop they'll give me. Yeah, I do like normal runner beans, but I thought these ones look cool, quite frankly. And they came highly recommended from Liz, so you can't say no to that, can you? Okay, and yeah, same again as with all the others. A little bit of compost on the top. Yeah, incidentally, I've gone through, because I've potted on an awful lot of sweet corn. So the sweet corn that we planted, is it the last one or the one before, I forget now, has virtually all come up. It's that sort of high already, and I spent most of yesterday evening potting those on, and there are a lot. I mean, I'm over 70, and that doesn't include the runts. Those are the ones that are just taking a little bit longer to fire, or aren't quite as developed, and weren't really in a position to be potted on just yet. But I've used a huge amount of compost, and I've gone from my normal stuff because I couldn't get any more, and I started to use this Asda stuff, and I'm really quite impressed with it. You know, yes, you get a few little twiggy bits like that, but it's fibrous, it's fluffy, and the seeds seem to respond quite well to it, so I'm quite impressed with that. So yeah, that's it. They'll get a water, get a dose, and get put in, and that will be that. Other thing I'll be doing tonight is potting on some of this. This is my celery. The celeriac is not only potted on, it's already in the ground, but I tend to leave my celery a little bit later than I do my celeriac, because celeriac needs a long season and can sit in beds that celery can't really sit in. So I tend to plant my celeriac in the middle of my tomatoes, because my beds are quite wide, they're 6 foot wide. I tend to plant tomatoes down the outside and celeriac in the middle, on the basis that celeriac don't mind a little bit of shade. And by the time it comes ready to harvest the celeriac, which are right in the middle, The tomatoes have long since finished and been taken out, so I can actually just climb into the bed, harvest that, and then top up. Whereas with other crops, you know, it's more difficult to get into the centre to do it without damaging other plants. So that's that. I'll bring you back for the watering one, and then not much left to do in the way of seed sowing. I'll be doing some successional sowing for things that we consume a lot of, but I'll start to now take you onto the plot to give you updates of how the things that we've sown so far are getting on, and doing direct sowings of things like spring onion, stuff like that, on a regular basis, rather than me sitting in my kitchen sowing things sowing things on the cooker. Right, well, I will see you on the next one.